A waitress brings her daughter to work. Suddenly, the little girl runs up to a millionaire in the restaurant, hugging him tightly and shouting, "Daddy!" But the most shocking part was his reaction. He looks at the girl, his voice calm. "I know this sounds crazy, but I think I'm her father." The words leave the waitress frozen in place, and his next words hit her like a ton of bricks, a truth she never saw coming. If a millionaire suddenly claimed to be your child's father, would you believe him? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Now let me tell you the story. Jessica had been working at Riverside Grill for 3 years. It wasn't her dream job, but it paid the bills and kept a roof over her head. Jessica had a 5-year-old daughter, Sophie, her one and only light in this world. To provide for Sophie, Jessica had sacrificed a lot. She worked long hours, often giving up sleep and precious time with her daughter just to make ends meet. The endless shifts at the grill drained her, but she had no other choice. Tonight was even tougher than usual. Her babysitter canceled at the last minute, leaving Jessica with no option but to bring Sophie to work. She just hoped everything would go smoothly. Jessica sighed, gripping the tray tightly as she weaved through the crowded tables. Her back ached. Her feet were numb from standing for hours, but she pushed through, reminding herself that if she could just get through tonight, she'd have one more day to take care of Sophie. In the corner of the restaurant, Sophie sat coloring, her little eyes focused on the page. But then Jessica noticed something. She had stopped. Sophie lifted her head, her eyes wide. She was staring across the room, at someone. Jessica was busy with a nearby table, but she caught a glimpse of Sophie frowning. The little girl tilted her head as if trying to remember something. Her tiny fingers gripped the crayon, absently twirling it between them. Something felt off. Sophie had never focused on someone this long before. Jessica glanced at her daughter, about to say something. "Mommy, look, it's Daddy." Sophie's voice cut through the room like a lightning strike. Jessica froze. The rag in her hand slipped to the floor. The noise around her seemed to vanish. Jessica turned her head, her breath catching in her throat. Sophie was running toward a stranger. She flung herself into his arms, hugging him like it was the most natural thing in the world. Her tiny face lit up as if she had just found the greatest treasure. Jessica couldn't move. The scene before her felt like a punch to the chest. No way. "Sophie, what are you doing?" Jessica's voice was hoarse, barely holding together. The man sat there, his sharp eyes softening. He gently placed a hand on Sophie's back. "It's okay," he said, his voice low and steady. "It's not every day I get called Daddy." Jessica's hands clenched. She couldn't breathe. "I'm sorry, sir, she's confused." But the man's gaze didn't waver. It wasn't the look of a complete stranger. "No," he said, something like recognition in his tone. "I think she's right." Jessica stood frozen, her mind blank. The man looked at Sophie. There was something familiar in his eyes. A warmth, but also something deeper. Maybe regret. And then his next words hit her like a lightning strike. "My name is James Harrington," he said slowly. "I'm the CEO of Harrington Enterprises." Jessica blinked. James Harrington. The name landed like a punch to her memory. She had seen it before on the news and financial reports, on the covers of business magazines. A name from the upper echelons of power. A man she never imagined would step into her world. And yet here he was. Jessica swallowed hard. No way. James continued, his voice gentle but firm. "I know this sounds crazy, but I think I'm her father." The air in the room seemed to freeze. Jessica's heart pounded so hard it felt like she'd just been yanked out of reality. "What?" Her voice cracked. "That doesn't make any sense. You don't remember me," James cut in, his gaze piercing through her. "But we were together years ago. It was brief, and then it ended. I had no idea you had a child. I didn't even know you were pregnant." Jessica couldn't breathe. Everything shattered. She scrambled to piece together fragments of a past she had long buried. James Harrington. Reckless nights from her younger years. A fleeting romance she had written off as nothing more than a passing memory. A name she never thought she'd have to remember again. But when she found out she was pregnant, James was gone. No calls, no messages, not even a goodbye. Just her. Alone, with a life growing inside her. And now he was standing right in front of her, saying he was Sophie's father. Her throat tightened. "I didn't want to believe it at first," James went on, his voice quieter now. But looking at her, I can't deny it anymore. I want to make things right. Jessica's fists clenched. This couldn't be happening. A millionaire, a CEO, a tech mogul, standing here claiming he was her daughter's father. I don't know what to say. Her voice was so small she could barely hear herself. You disappeared. It's been years. You were gone. I know. For the first time, James's voice was weighed down with regret. I'm sorry, Jessica. I spent all these years building a company chasing my career. But now I see I've missed something far more important. Jessica's jaw tightened. No, it wasn't that simple. He couldn't just show up, say a few words of regret, and expect her to forgive him. She had raised her daughter alone, endured everything alone. You think saying that is enough? She arched a brow, her voice cold. You disappeared. And me, I was the one there when Sophie was sick, when she cried in the middle of the night. I was the one holding her hand every time she was scared. James said nothing. I'm not asking for anything, he finally said, his voice calm. But I'd like to get to know my daughter, if you'd let me. Jessica bit her lip. She didn't want to trust him. But then she looked at Sophie. Her daughter was still standing there, eyes wide and glowing. The joy on Sophie's face was something Jessica had never seen before. She could shut James out. But did she have the right to take this away from Sophie? No. She couldn't decide this right now. I need time, Jessica finally said. This is too much to process all at once. James nodded. Of course. Take all the time you need. For the next few days, Jessica couldn't get James out of her head. She scrolled through his messages. I'd like to talk just 5 minutes. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. I don't want to intrude, but I really want to understand my daughter. She put her phone down, an unfamiliar feeling creeping in. Before, she wouldn't have hesitated to delete every single message. But the image of Sophie, her face lighting up when she saw James, kept replaying in her mind. Jessica had raised Sophie on her own all these years. She was the one there through every fever, every first day of school, every nightmare. She had never needed anyone else. But what about Sophie? On the 4th day after their encounter, Jessica got a call from James's office. She stared at the screen. Her heart pounded. A part of her wanted to ignore it. But before logic could intervene, her finger had already swiped to answer. Jessica. Just one word, but James's voice carried a weight she couldn't ignore. I've been thinking a lot about how I can be a part of Sophie's life. Jessica gripped the phone tighter. Her guard went up. And I want to do more than just show up every now and then. No, Jessica thought. Don't say these things unless you mean them. What do you mean? Her voice was dry. I want to offer you a position at my company. For a split second, Jessica almost laughed. A millionaire CEO offering her a waitress a job. You're offering me a job? Yes. No way. She didn't need his charity. She had done everything on her own for years. James continued, his tone calm but firm. I also want to set up a scholarship fund for Sophie. If she wants to go to college one day, I'll make sure she has everything she needs to get there. A chill ran down Jessica's spine. Her instinct was to shut him down immediately. But then, Sophie's face flashed in her mind. If she refused, would she be taking something away from Sophie? Jessica stared at the phone. 2 choices lay before her. She could refuse outright, keep living as she always had, and keep Sophie away from James forever. Or she could agree to meet with him not for herself, but for Sophie. She had fought for years, built a life for her and Sophie without anyone's help. But was that really what was best for her daughter? She still didn't trust James, but she couldn't deny the way Sophie's eyes lit up when she saw him. In the end, she decided to take the gamble. I need time to think, she said, trying to keep her voice steady. I understand. James's voice softened. Take all the time you need. Just know that I'm here, and I truly want this. After days of thinking, Jessica finally decided to take the gamble. She called James and agreed to meet. He had given her time, space, and respect, and in the end, it wasn't his words but his actions that convinced her to give him a chance. But the meeting wasn't what Jessica had expected. No grand promises, no pity, just a man trying to make things right. She could see that James was sincere. He genuinely wanted to be part of Sophie's life, and he proved it through his actions. "Let's try," Jessica said firmly. "Let's give this a chance." As time passed, Jessica's life began to change. James wasn't perfect, but he kept his word. He showed up for Sophie, supported Jessica's career, and proved that he truly wanted to be a father. Slowly, Jessica began to trust him, and Sophie, her face lit up every time she saw her father. That was when Jessica realized that sometimes life offers second chances, but no one ever said the journey would be easy. In the first days after their reunion, Sophie was overjoyed to have a father, but there were also moments of doubt. She had never known James before. How could she suddenly accept him as part of her life? There were days she pouted, refused to talk to him, and once through tears she even screamed, "You're going to leave again, aren't you?" James froze. That question wasn't for the man he was now. It was for the man who had unknowingly missed so many important years of her life. But instead of arguing, he simply said, "I'm staying. You can trust that." And he did. One rainy evening, Jessica came home late from work. As she stepped inside, she found James and Sophie curled up on the couch watching an old movie. Sophie had fallen asleep, her head resting against her father's shoulder. James gently pulled a small blanket over her, his eyes filled with a softness Jessica had never seen before. That was the moment she realized he was no longer a stranger in their lives. Years later, Sophie had grown into a confident, beautiful young woman. She had her mother's deep, thoughtful eyes and her father's warm smile. She was strong, full of life, and filled with dreams. Today was her high school graduation. She stepped onto the stage to receive a scholarship from James's company's education fund. Jessica stood near the stage, her eyes welling with tears, not just out of pride for her daughter, but because she knew she was no longer walking this path alone. James stood beside her, but this time there was no distance between them. Not because he was Sophie's father, but because he had become a part of their lives in a way no one ever expected. As Sophie stepped down, she ran toward them, throwing her arms around both of them. "Thank you, Dad. Thank you, Mom." James smiled, ruffling his daughter's hair. "I'm proud of you." Jessica watched them, her heart full. They had been through so many challenges, so many uncertain days, but more than anything, they had chosen to trust and move forward together. Life doesn't rewind. But second chances do exist for those willing to take them. And so what started as a chance encounter became a journey no one saw coming. From strangers to family, from loss to reunion, from old wounds to a new beginning. Thank you for supporting our channel. We always strive to share valuable lessons and spread positivity in society. If you believe in this, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to receive more meaningful and inspiring stories. These stories are collected from various sources and do not represent any individual or organization. They are shared to promote human values in life and have been rewritten with AI assistance. If there are any errors, we appreciate your understanding. Wishing you all the best in life.